What is up, everybody? I am back. Yes, it is time to finally, after a long delay, continue my trek through Mushoku Tensei Jobless Reincarnation, Volume 2. This is time to finish up this volume, and yes, I finally have it in my hands, physically in my hands. I'm still waiting for 3, and so on, but I got 2. But yes, it's been a while. I want to say that I appreciate everybody's support. There was a lot of people just asking. I felt bad because a lot of people were saying, hey dude, are you done? Are you not doing any more Mushoku Tensei Jobless Reincarnation? And I'm like, yeah, just wait. I had to get through all the first impressions of the season as the season kind of kicked up. But I'm here. I'm here to continue this on. So yes, we are still kind of just trickling into Chapter 8 of Mushoku Tensei Jobless Reincarnation Volume 2. So we'll continue that, do the extra chapter, and then wrap things up. I'm already starting on the 3rd volume, so don't worry. We're getting back into it. And again, like I said before, I really appreciate everybody's support. The outpour of people just asking where it's at just tells me how much people are enjoying it, and so that means a lot to me. So with all that said, let's jump into it. To give people a reminder of where we're at right now, again, Rudeus is with Edis and Laine, where you're seeing this kind of buildup of this mana. Everybody's kind of observing it at this point. So jumping right into where we left off, we have it basically jumping around to different people. We've seen like Pedagus, Orsted, and Roxy, and then we're jumping over now to the Demon Continent where we see Kishirika. Yes, this is finally where we get the Kishirika scene inside of the novel. And this is really funny because, yes, it was really goofy. I honestly, when I was watching the anime, I was really thrown off by Kishirika. She was very cartoonish. Like, she did not fit this, like, you know, down-to-earth setting of a fantasy world, but it's to the credit of her herself. She's very weird, and it's even seen so more in the novel itself because you really do get almost a third wall breaking. I mean, technically, Rudeus is always breaking the third wall. He's always making comments about this other world, but it's never directed to us as the viewer or the reader. And I really did feel like Kishirika was almost trying to do that. You could argue that it's more because she's trying to talk to these minions that don't exist, but it was really funny getting this perspective. But yeah, she's talking about having this army behind her, but nobody's there. She's looking around. She's very lonely. She's talking about how things have really changed. Like back in the day, people used to always praise her name. Just the mention of her name, people jumped out of windows. But now it's very peaceful now. It mentions the fact that yes, she has these demon eyes. She's in the possession of more than 10 eyes. A single glance from her eye could tell what's happening. But yes, she's observing this mana as well, saying that it is a very powerful light. But she also says that it is a familiar light. It's a light that is similar to that of a summoning magic. But when she tries to look into it further to see who's doing it, she can't see. There's a barrier there, which is kind of surprising to Kishirika, who has these eyeballs that are very, very powerful. She mentions specifically that they're hiding their face and they're causing mayhem. But then after this kind of just gives up and says, you know, I really wish that they would summon a hero. All that people talk about anymore is Laplace. I guess they're really into heroes that look as beautiful as Laplace. But alternatively, she really desires that moment where she could have the spotlight, which is kind of funny, so that's pretty much all we get from her perspective. This is where we jump back to Rudeus. This is the point in which he's going out to test this new staff that he just got. And so he's out there with Edis and Laine. And of course, like we mentioned before, at this point, Pedagus is looking upon this disaster and sending out his men to go check it out. Rudeus mentions the idea that this staff itself seems to have the capability of increasing his magic capability by 5 power-fold. But Laine stops the ceremony. This is when she sees this mana and uses her eye. This is where we get the reveal that she has one of these special eyes underneath her eye patch that is able to see the mana. And similar to the anime, Aramanthe shows up, tries to kill Rudeus. Like it even puts a lot more emphasis in the novel that I nearly died. Like this person was going to kill me with a single blow. Again, technically Pedagus ordered him, go out and just take out anything that looks suspicious. In order to stop Aramanthe, Laine swears upon the sword god Galfalion, and not only that, but also to the honor of the Doldolia people, to which Aramanthe accepts it, and that's when the mana disaster itself actually happens. It just engulfs everything. And that's pretty much all we get from at least Rudeus and Edis for this entire volume, which is interesting, but gets into the whole extra chapter, which I'm kind of excited to talk about. There seems to be a little bit of a jump forward in time at this point. We jump perspectives to Roxy, and this is where I got quite a bit of nugget of goodness from this volume. Again, technically a lot of this stuff is covered in the anime, and all the important stuff is sort of covered. But it's always like the details in that extra bit that is done in the novels that really gives weight to situations and that I really did find fascinating. And I found that especially in this little segment with Roxy. This is the point in which Roxy arrives back to the Buena village. And of course, since the man disaster, the displacement incident happened, everything's gone. Everything is ruins. And upon arriving, Roxy falls upon her knees. She's devastated by what she's seeing. She claims that it's nearly as dire as the Demon Continent, which, for those that have watched the anime, you know, getting to that section, it's a desolate place. When she arrives at the refugee camp that she initially gets to, this is where we get a real dire sense of how much devastation has really plagued the people of this area. Again, in the anime, she's kind of enters this area, there's people crying and whatnot, but this takes it like a whole nother step. It mentions that there's a father who lost his entire family and his home. There's a priest that throws their symbol of the Milis religion because they're that angry that God would allow this to happen. He claims that God ridicules us and kills us. Again, hitting heavy on the idea that this priest has just got done watching everybody's life destroyed in front of him, and he doesn't have the words to give them in comfort. It mentions that she sees a merchant who's trying to take his own life because he's lost his entire livelihood. And this is where it gets really, again, I don't remember this ever being mentioned in the anime. So where it kind of gets a little detail about what's happening. There's been reports throughout the world of people suddenly reappearing. We got the assumption that's the case because in the anime, yes, technically Rudeus and Edis both get teleported to some random place in the Demon Continent. But this is talking about not just this level of teleportation, but this teleportation. People falling from the sky, falling to the seas, teleporting to monsters and being killed, atop mountains where they die of suffocation. This is more than just being moved from this place to this place, but still ground zero. Which is interesting because as we get into the third volume, that seems to be more relevant than I ever expected. It wouldn't be a shock that if somebody were walking around, suddenly somebody would just splat in front of them. That's what my mind immediately goes to. Or yes, if somebody were to be teleported underground, buried alive. This is where again it gets a little bit more weighty about the situation itself. Not just buildings disappearing, not just people being moved to places and possibly sold off, but people just immediately dying. Which I think as the story goes along, and yes, as we've seen from the anime itself, it gives a little bit more of a sigh of relief when we do finally see people still alive. This is where Roxy goes to the bulletin board. She notes the missing people area and the deceased people area, noting that pretty much nobody is in the deceased area that she knows of, so she's kind of sighing a little bit of relief, but at the same time, there's still a little bit of unknown there. But what I really loved about this moment is we get a real good sense of Roxy's feeling for the situation. And I think this is something, again, that wasn't really portrayed very well in the anime, is this idea that Roxy has a deep desire to see them once again. This is people that welcomed her into their home. She became a part of the family. This is a girl that, honestly, if you think about it, she's seen as a demon no matter where she goes. Yes, she has the status of what she is, but she's still technically of the Demon Continent. She's still a person of demon race. And yes, she did gain favor of the people of the village of Buena Village, and yes, was accepted into the home of Rudeus's, but still, that was an oddity. She feels that she's indebted to them for the 2 years that she spent with them, wondering where they're at now, and desiring for that moment that she could be with them again, to sit down at a table and eat with them again. Obviously, at this point, Roxy decides that she wants to go help find them, and obviously starts to realize Rudeus is probably going to be okay. He adapts very well, but there's obviously others that need help more. And she does find the note left behind by Paul, which is basically a huge call out to anybody to help him find his family. Paul has left for the Holy Milis country, and so she feels like she needs to go further than that, to the northern central continent. Here's this name again. To the Begaret continent, and as well, the Demon Continent. At this point, she does mention that the Begaret continent is full of labyrinths. At the same time, she's going to need to procure a party to go to the Demon Continent, because she can't go there alone. Now, that's it. Anybody wondering what's missing here? Yes. She doesn't get the party right here. Like in the anime, she immediately is met by Elenalisi and Talhand, the dwarf and the elf that she's with later on. So yeah, apparently that's sometime later because it's not here. It's not at the bulletin board like the anime had. So interesting there. But yeah, that end of the chapter was great. I of course I love Roxy to death. And so to give a little bit more perspective as to just how much she not just loves Rudeus, but she loves the Grey Rat family. Like, again, this was a family that kind of brought her in, and she really did cherish these moments with them. And again, technically giving a lot more weight to the mana disaster itself. The fact that, yes, people are just kind of being thrown everywhere, up high, down low, and a lot of people are dying. And the sheer amount of devastation that the people around her are really experiencing really does hit. Again, it's a lot more than just hearing people crying in the background. It was a lot more, again, unfortunate, but heavier detail. And that gets us into the extra chapter, which, I'm going to be perfectly honest, took me a long time to read. On top of me doing first impressions for the current season that's kicking up, this is the other reason why it took me a little bit long to get to doing this last video for the second volume. I just was bored reading this last chapter. And it wasn't until, yes, Laine shows up in the chapter that I finally dawned on me what we're doing here. And it was great. But it's great because it's something different. It's something new for me. Honestly, as an anime only, this is new stuff. But at the same time, just hearing people bickering about these different countries. We're talking about Bra's Empire. We're talking about the Dikuto Kingdom. I just don't care. The mercenary group. I just was like, what are we doing here? But yes, eventually it all makes sense. So let's get into this particular chapter, because again, this is something completely new for anime onlys. The scene opens up east of the Asura Kingdom. This is over the mountains into the middle of the central continent, which, if we kind of, recall back here to this whole history lesson that we got in this volume, this is a very heavily contested area. This is what they call the conflict zone. A lot of nations are building and falling left and right. Everybody desires to have their kingdom sprout up in this area and exist and flourish. And our focus goes quickly to the Markian mercenary country. It's noted that 2 years prior to this, the mercenary king Markian established the Markian mercenary country. It seems that the Markian mercenary country is in a bad situation. It seems with the Dikudo Kingdom and the Bra's Empire right next to them, it's only a matter of time before they fall. So what happens is Bigot Mercanal decides to lead a group of 10 men through the Edgen Forest, which is a nasty place to go, apparently. There's just tons of monsters there. They decide they're going to go through there and attack the Dikuto Kingdom from behind. Pincer attack them, but attack them in Bra's Empire armor. And this will make the Dikuto Kingdom believe that they are being attacked by the Bras, and then they will cause a conflict. Thus, they'll destroy each other. And this is a mission that he believes is pretty much a death mission. If they believe they're going to be captured, they have to end their own lives, because if they were to get captured, it will reveal that it was the Markian mercenary country that was doing it. They want them to believe that it was the Bra's Empire. And as they're going through this forest, they lose a couple people due to monster attacks, and eventually they find themselves face to face with a group of Bra's Empire soldiers. But not just any soldiers, the Emperor's commander and his men. What it suggested is that it seems like the Emperor himself was harmed by a monster. So he sent his men into the forest to find this monster, kill it, and bring it back to him. That way he can boast that he got the scar from fighting this monster. Which really sucks for Bigot, because they're out in the middle of this forest and they can't reveal who they are, so they have no choice but to fight or die. And they're getting quickly wiped out. Like, this Emperor's commander is extremely powerful, and all of his men are extremely skilled. And they're at their last moment, like they're about to die, and then suddenly a monster appears out of nowhere and is being attacked, and then suddenly, yes, this crazy lady shows up, mad-faced and everything, bloodthirsty woman, tearing everybody down, and then finally Bigot goes, wait, I realized who this woman before me was. It's Laine. Like, he knows him, he realizes very quickly, this woman before me is Laine. Knowing from the stories that were told to him from the sword saint that taught him swordplay. This was Sword King Laine. And thankfully, he kind of greets her and makes sure it's her, so that she quickly snaps out of it. It seems like Laine was like in a bloodthirsty fury. And he's kind of asking, what are you doing out here? Like, she's regained herself and she's been bloodthirsty and everything. He's kind of asking, what are you doing out here, Laine? And she's like, I'm looking for Eris and Rudeus, basically. She's out there looking for Eris and Rudeus. Yes, this is essentially where Laine was teleported to. Again, something we never got a perspective in the anime. In the anime, all we know is, like, later on, she's at this camp. And it's like, okay, well, where did she end up? This is where it's kind of telling us, this is where Laine ended up. Somewhere around the Edgen Forest. And she's been frantically searching for Edis and Rudeus, and it's kind of driven her to kind of a feral state. But it's interesting because at this point, Big At goes, okay, well, if you're trying to get back to your place, it's down south. And so she's like, okay, I'm going that way. And he's like, wait. The Dikuto Kingdom and the Bronze Empire are down that way. You're going to run into some people. And she's like, I don't care. I'm going to go south. And if anybody gets in my way, I will destroy them. Like, she's just going to go, like, she's a bulldozer. Like, she's going to go this direction, and anybody gets in my way, they're dead. Which Bigot jumps on, like, okay, well, if you're going that way, can I go with you? So this kind of turns into this whole thing where Bigot is basically guarding Ghislaine's flank, or at least that's what he says. And he's overjoyed. Like, this is an honor. Like, I'm fighting at the side of the great Ghislaine. So very quickly, the moment they leave the forest, which the Dikuto Kingdom had like their base set up with their back against the forest, assuming nobody would come out of the forest. And so yes, Ghislaine goes in there, chops him in half. And then they have this whole segment where it's going out to this battlefield. Obviously, the Dikuto Kingdom is going after the Bronze Empire, and there's this big fight happening. The mercenary country decides to kind of join in, and at some point, Bigot loses track of where Ghislaine is. And then the moment he takes an arrow to his eye and he's searching for whoever shot him, he notes Ghislaine up on this hill, taking out the Bronze Empire Emperor. She's just taking everybody out. But yes, what this whole kind of thing, and this whole chapter kind of establishes is, one, where did Ghislaine go? Like, this whole tragedy happened, this displacement thing happened. Where did Ghislaine go? Apparently, like I said, somewhere in the Aegean forest. And at that point, she decided, I'm going to go straight south to go back home to find Edis and Rudeus. And again, she went into like a feral state, and she was just bloodthirsty looking for where they're at. And apparently this Bigot guy kind of snapped her out of it for a brief moment. But additionally, it's establishing that this is the creation of like a tale. Apparently what the Markian mercenary country kind of passes down is the story of the forest goddess, Laine. Now, the question that's immediately asked, even in the novel, is, who's Laine? Well, apparently, in this region, with their tongue, it's very difficult for them to say geese. The Laine part is easier to say, so they decided to just make it the forest goddess, Laine. This was the lady that showed up that completely turned the tides of this war. Yes, like I said earlier, the Markian mercenary country was at their worst. They were going to fall. And their only hope was to trick the Dikuto Kingdom into believing they were being attacked by the Bronze Empire. But it went even further than that because, again, her coming in and basically just wiping them out from behind allowed them to rise up. And so for generations, I think they mentioned something like for 200 years from this point on, she was always known as this goddess that protected them, the goddess of the forest that changed the tides of their war and saved their country. So yeah, really excellent chapter, despite the fact, like I said, the first, quarter or half of it, I'm like, I don't really care about these Markian dudes. What are we even talking about? I even mentioned in some live streams, I'm like, okay, can somebody tell me, is this chapter worth a damn? Can I just skip it? Obviously, everything is for a purpose. Every chapter has significance. And so, I don't know, maybe later down the road, we'll learn, like somebody will say, man, did you ever hear about the story about the forest goddess Laine? I'll go, ooh, I know who that is. I know what that is. But we'll see. But anyways, that's the volume 2. That's everything from volume 2. I hope you guys enjoyed this run through of the second volume. Again, like I said, I'm already starting into the third volume. Already something very significantly different from the first page, which is pretty shocking. We get a sense of the travel of Rudeus, which was never in the anime. So that's already got me a little bit fascinated, but we'll see. But that's it. That's the second volume. I hope you guys enjoy this video, as always, this analysis. Definitely appreciate it. I always love the support that people have been giving me through either telling other people about this whole series, either that or supporting us through Patreon, our tips link, our super thanks button. If you would like to, I would greatly appreciate if you consider supporting us as well. All the links are down below in the description. Additionally, if you've not already, I'm not sure how you get this far into the video and not hit that like button. Hit that like button so you can support us as well, and leave a comment. Let me know what you thought of this whole section. Did I miss something? What was intriguing about to you? Again, as always, please keep the spoilers out of the comments. Again, this is from the perspective of somebody that's watched the first season of the anime and has only read the second volume at this point. But anyways, I hope you guys enjoy this video as always. Also, if you've not already, make sure to hit that subscribe button, and y'all take care.